Welcome to Dangerous Prototypes. I'm Ian. Yossi suggested that we show how we actually make our videos, our workshop videos, and our Global Geek Tour videos. So that's what I'm going to show you today. It's a bit of a cop-out. I'm a little burned out from editing videos after last week's epic 30-minute tour video. We shoot everything with these little JVC Avarios. They're really nothing but a lens with a CCD at the back. They record everything to an SD card, so it's easy to pull off and transfer to a computer. They record in full 1080p, but that's a little misleading because the codec isn't very good. So especially fast motion stuff tends to pixelate and blur and look terrible. But we're recording what's basically a business meeting to put it on YouTube, so I really can't bring myself to care much more than that. For audio recently, though, we updated to the H1N, the little Zoom recorders. We used that first in Singapore and then again in the New York trip. And I think it improves the audio a lot. The audio from these camcorders is just terrible. It records all the noise in the room. And this is pretty top notch. So for interviews, we just talk into it like this, and you can direct an interview that way. For walk and talk sort of stuff, we've got these little Shure clip-on microphones. These are like 15 bucks, really nothing expensive, nothing fancy. But they seem to work great. Pulled the audio from my Open Hardware Summit presentation off of that instead of the room audio, and it's probably the best copy I've seen out there. So when we get back to the workshop from a trip, we dump all the footage from the cameras and the Zoom using the USB port. It's much faster than pulling the discs out and putting them into the computer. And we dump everything to a 120 gig solid state hard drive. I really like using the solid state drives for that because they're really much faster than the spinning drives. And when you're moving backwards and forwards between gigs and gigs of video, sometimes on multiple tracks, it's really much faster to have that solid state drive in there. We've got a secondary 60 gig solid state drive that we use to cache all of the video while we're working on it. So this is the content of the New York trip. We dumped all the video to the hard drive and then sorted it by the date code into folders. Here we've got the intro, the food crawl, the Open Hardware Summit, Geek Tour, Maker Faire, Conclusion. In the folder, we've got the video files, which are MTS. Now that we have separate audio tracks, we try to sort the audio tracks into there as well. And then we use Adobe Premiere Pro for all the editing. We tried absolutely everything cheaper, and nothing worked. It all had terrible issues of suckage. So we bit the bullet and spent 500 bucks and bought Adobe Premiere Pro, and it works much better. We put all the footage into the project. You can see the same folders we had below. And then we quickly view all the footage, and you can see what a lot of it is here. And we just name it quickly. Spelling doesn't matter, just enough to have some hint what it is when we're going back through and constructing the video. Once all the footage is shorted, we start tossing it onto a timeline and building up the film. Each one of these is a video sequence, and for a big film like the New York trip, we broke it up into sections. So we have an intro, the food crawl, Open Hardware Summit, Geek Tour, etc. That makes it easier to scroll back and forth. You don't get lost in so much footage. So here in the Geek Tour, each sequence is made up of tracks. You can see we've got multiple video tracks here and multiple audio tracks below. So we've got this nice interview with Guan when he shows us around the hackerspace. And you see we've got his video track here, and this is the original audio track from the video camera. Down here we've got the Zoom audio. The first thing we usually do is get the interviews on here because that's the meat of our presentation, and then we line the audio up to it. And there's two ways to do the audio. We've got a script called Pluralize that allows you to export the timeline as a Final Cut Pro XML file, and then it will do the audio alignment based on the waveforms and spit back out aligned audio. There's a tendency to make a huge mess of stuff. So what we do now is make a mark in both audio that's very visible on the timeline. You can see here, you can see the waveform of the audio from the camcorder and the audio from the Zoom down here. So you might have noticed in New York, we made the gag about doing the sync to align the audio, and literally we come up to the camera and say sync. Sync, 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 sync. We did. Sync. Really close, and it's over the levels of both the camera and the H1N, so they have a big blurry thing, and it's really easy to find that in the timeline. You can find that right away. Line it up, maybe do a tiny bit of tweaking here and there, and then you're good to go. That's probably the easiest way to do it. Right now it's faster to do it manually. Hopefully, maybe in some future version of Premiere, they will make that automatic and integrate it into Premiere. After we've laid down the interview and the audio, whatever the meat of the scene is, then we'll start adding what we call B-reel or B-roll. It's really important stuff. B-reel is the 3 to 5 second shots we make of things that people are talking about and also stuff going on in the room. It gives you an idea what the context of the scene is, what else is going on, and also you can see what people are talking about instead of just looking at their face talking about it. But the real secret reason we make so much B-reel when we do our shoots is because it lets you cut over bad edits. So if you want to cut down something someone says, if someone makes a mistake or does a 5 second period of you can just slice that out, put a little B-reel over the top of it, and nobody's the wiser. So here, for example, Guan's talking about their metal shop and the lathe and the drill press. So we've got these B-reel scenes of lathes and drill presses. We can bring the original up here. And you can see overall, this is only a 2.5, 3 second segment of video. And we'll take, you can see over here, the vast majority of our footage is actually B-reel. Traffic, street views, pictures of insides of buildings. So here we've got a lathe, and we come through. And then Guan talks about some electronics, so we show that, the 3D printer. And you can see right here, we have one of those cuts. He talked about a few different things and gave us some more information about the 3D printer, but we couldn't fit all of it into the scene, so we cut it out, and we use that long shot of the 3D printer right here to cover over it so you don't notice it as much. We also use that over here to transition. When he tells us that they've got a upstairs garden, we start showing scenes of that with little bits of B-reel. I really like this part because you can see the bees flying out of the box and through the scene the whole time. They literally were bees just everywhere right there. They didn't bother us though. So that's essentially what we do, and that's just about it. Chopping and dicing and slicing and moving things together and layering video up. But here we had such a big group of people on the Geek Tour that we had an opportunity to do some fun things. For example, the group was so large it took everyone 5 or 6 minutes to file out of the roof garden at Hack Manhattan. So we took a long roll of that and we cut the scenes up and sort of overlapped them. And this is how we did that. You've got here 4 different layers of film, and then we start filing out and you see the first one appear. That's just a track that we made smaller and put up there in the corner. And as we go on, you see the other track, this one comes in and this one comes in. And eventually everyone makes it out of the roof and down the street to Radio Shack. And so we divided the whole thing up into scenes, which are basically the different parts of our tour and the things we did. It makes it much more manageable. And then at the end, you can drag the scenes into a master scene, and that's how we actually make our video. So here's the master scene. Here we've got the intro, the food crawl, the Open Hardware Summit. Here's the Geek Tour video that we were just looking at. Further down, we've got the Maker Faire, and then the sync gag reel at the end. So that's basically how our videos are made. The most time is involved in sorting the footage, viewing it, naming it, aligning the audio to the interviews. After that, it's just slicing and dicing and putting things together in a pleasing order. There's not a lot of time to do these videos. My deadline is always to get it out the following Thursday after one of these trips. For the New York video, we landed at 5 a.m. Tuesday, and by Thursday night, I had the video out and done. There's a lot of rough areas. I like to add lots of things like musical tracks to make it more entertaining, and this one came out at 25 minutes, and with an extra day of footage, I'm sure I could have a much tighter 13-minute show. But this is what we had, and that's what we had on the deadline, so we compressed it and uploaded it to Google. Here in a couple weeks, I'm going to talk more about the planning of the Global Geek Tours. We're doing India here coming up, and that was a whole adventure to plan in and of itself. And I think some of the tips there will help anybody planning a geek tour anywhere, whether it be China, India, Japan, or whatever. So thank you for watching. See you next week when we'll be back with some electronic stuff and hacking right here at the workshop. Thanks for watching. See you next week.